It is the clash of the rivals right here at the Voice of College Football, breaking down the game we all love each and every day with you. You see the two helmets behind me as we match up the greatest rivalries in college football. We look at the microwave dynasties that produced two of the best programs in college football that dominated largely throughout the 1980s and 90s. Florida State and Miami. Let's look at the two programs since the year 2000. Yes, that is not a perfect comparison. We could go all time, and then we could go pick the year. College football playoff era. Last 20 years. 21st century. Since 1980 when they both emerged under Bobby Bowden and Howard Schnellenberger. Pick your year. We can't cover everything. We're going to select the 21st century and match Florida State and Miami. Better program. Here we go. The win-loss record overall goes in Florida State's direction. They are winning 68% of their games, 212 wins, 98 losses since 2000. Miami at 196 and 107. Of course, the Canes got off to an amazing start at 46-4 in the first 4 seasons of our sample period here, 2000 through 2003. Miami football's only 40 wins and 34 losses since 2018 under Manny Diaz and Mario Cristobal. For Florida State, their downtime came at the end of the Bobby Bowden era when they only went 38-27, but that did not compare to the bottoming out under Jimbo Fisher at the end, Willie Taggart, and Mike Norvell at 26-33. Again, Florida State with a decent advantage over Miami overall. Of course, at the outset of the 21st century, Miami was dominating the Big East and was just a few years away from entering the ACC, which Florida State had been dominating since they entered the conference back in 1992. Florida State's won 130 games in ACC play since 2000, losing 63. That's a 67-plus winning percentage for Miami. So let's take into account, in the Big East, they just completely flattened the conference, and they, of course, were in their prime in the years 2000 through 03 at 27-1. Then they switch over to the ACC. They've been marginally successful, slightly over 500, 89 wins, 72 losses, winning 55% of their games. Put it all together in conference play, and Miami's won just over 61% of its games. Florida State has a significant advantage here. And while Florida State has definitely been a more consistent contender in the ACC, really the distinction between the two programs during this time frame has been winning conference championships. Who would have thought, with the dominance of Miami football entering the ACC, that here we would be entering the 2024 season with Miami having not yet won a conference championship, only competing in the conference title game once in 2017, of course, losing to Clemson 38-3. For Florida State, it's 8 conference championships since the year 2000. And during this time, the ACC implemented a conference championship game. Florida State is 5-1 in those conference championship games, having won the 2023 matchup against Louisville to gain the ACC. Miami is, again, 0-1 in ACC championship games. And then, of course, there are national championships. Florida State won the most recent one in 2013 with Jameis Winston at quarterback, winning a BCS championship game against Auburn at the Rose Bowl. For Miami, they looked, again, like they would continue to win national championships. They have won as well in 2001 at that same Rose Bowl, annihilating Nebraska in that matchup. So 1-1 in terms of national championships. Now we get to the head-to-head. This is the real crux of the rivalry. Do you beat your rival on the field? And nobody has a clear distinction here. Florida State leads the series since 2000, but it's only 13-12. Florida State's got 3 straight wins right now. Miami won 6 straight to begin this comparison between 2000 and 2005. If you add up all the points scored between Florida State and Miami in these 25 matchups, Florida State has only outscored Miami by 24 points. Now let's get to postseason play, and it's been a rough ride for Miami football recently, and now that recently is extending to 15 and 20 years. But it wasn't always that way. Miami's lost 11 of 12 postseason games. Most recently, of course, the Pinstripe Bowl against Rutgers. 6-13 for Miami football in bowl play. If we look at major bowl games, Miami is 3-2, having defeated Florida in the Sugar Bowl in 2000, that national championship game against Nebraska. And then they also defeated Florida State in the last time they won a major bowl game. So you get the rare rivals playing in postseason play against each other. And then, of course, Miami lost the 0-2 championship game to Ohio State at the Fiesta Bowl. Also lost to Wisconsin with Mark Richt on the sidelines in the 2017 Orange Bowl. Bobby Bowden boasts one of the best postseason records in history, but most of that damage was done in the 1980s and most notably in the 90s. Now, while Florida State fans, many of them have some disdain still for Jimbo Fisher, he actually owns the only 3 major bowl victories for Florida State football since the year 2000. Of course, he won a national championship game in 2013 that we mentioned, the Orange Bowl win in 2012, and another Orange Bowl win in 2016. A couple of the more significant major bowl losses for Florida State, losing the championship game at the Orange Bowl against Oklahoma 13-2 in 2000, and then getting drubbed by Oregon at the Rose Bowl in 2014 in the inaugural college football playoff. Then when you put the wins and losses in the regular season plus the postseason performance together, it results in a ranking at the conclusion of the season, and I think we can gather much from where these two schools have placed in the rankings during this 21st century. There have been 24 football seasons, and Miami ranked in the top 5 in America the first 4 of these seasons, and they have yet to place in the top 5 since then. If you're looking at top 25 finishes, Florida State has finished in the top 25 16 times, Miami 10. Florida State's got the edge in finishing in the top 10 6 times to Miami's 4, and again, Miami finished in the top 5 in the country in 2000, 01, 02, and 03 for all 4 top 10 and top 5 finishes. Florida State with 3 top 5 finishes following the 2000 season in which they lost the national championship game, 13 when they won the national title, and then, of course, in 2014 when they lost the Rose Bowl in the college football playoff and finished at 13-1. The roll call of Miami and Florida State talent is astounding over the last 30 or 40 years. Peaking in the 1980s, throughout the 1990s, and maybe those Miami teams in the early 2000s, 2000, 01, 02, 03, were some of the more talented teams in the history of college football. Florida State, of course, more consistently possibly, but probably not peaking as high as Miami in terms of just astounding talent, although Florida State would be right up there as well. So now let's look at individual accomplishments and awards. We've got 1 Heisman Trophy during this time that belongs to Jameis Winston, of course, in 2013. And then if we look at All-Americans, consensus All-Americans, Florida State has the edge there, 17-11 over Miami. We also looked at major award winners during this time. So looked at all the positions. So you've got the Davey O'Brien at quarterback. You've got the Doak Walker at running back. And when we went through all of them, you see the list here for Miami. 6 major trophies won by the Canes. And Miami fans can credit Dan Morgan because he won 3 of them in the year 2000. Nagurski, Butkus, and Bednarik for the outstanding linebacker. You also have Kellen Winslow winning the tight end award, the John Mackey Award. And then you also have the Outland Award going to Bryant McKinney in 2001 and a kicking award for Jose Borgales in 2020. On the Florida State side, Chris Winkie won the Davey O'Brien in 2000, and then Jameis Winston won it as well in 2013. We've got Nick O'Leary in 2014 with a Mackey Award appearance. The Lombardi went to Jamal Reynolds in 2000. The Groza twice went to Seminoles, which is kind of ironic since we are comparing Miami and Florida State, and we know the history of the rivalry and how it turned in Miami's favor based on wide right, wide left. But Graham Gano in 2008 and Robert Aguayo in 2013 were considered the best kickers in college football. So we're dead even here. We'll give Jameis Winston and that 2013 Heisman the nod, but dead even in terms of other major awards. Florida State 6, Miami 6. And then how about those great collegiate players moving on to the NFL. And again, we will see a trend where Miami and that 2000 to 2003 or 4 run is astounding in regards to talent, producing at the collegiate level, moving on to the NFL, and Florida State, much more consistent NFL production. In the NFL draft, Miami's produced 127 draftees since the year 2000. But listen to this, they had 40 in the first 5 drafts. That's 8 per draft, 2000 through 2004. And now they've had 87 more in the other 19 drafts since 2004. Florida State, 114 is their total draft selection, so Miami leads by 13. And now when we look at first-round picks, this is where the Miami talent just is completely overwhelming. 32 drafted in the first round, that's since 2000, but 20 of the 32 were in those drafts of 2000, 01, 02, and 03 and 04. So 5 drafts with 20 first-rounders, and then since then, Miami's had 12, Florida State with 25 overall, so Miami wins again, 32 to 25. I am sure that there are so many other ways we could break down this rivalry and how the two programs compare since the year 2000. And again, we would love to break it down since 1990, 1980, 70, all time, last 10 years. We could do a number of comparisons during various time frames. So I've done this before with various schools, and I always get the complaint, oh, you only did it during this time frame, and if you would have done this time frame. But this is a good start. It is the 21st century, and so we looked at a good block of time, and we stuck with modern football. So no leather helmet comparison here. This is Miami and Florida State over the last 24 football seasons. Again, we could have actually used other metrics, I'm sure. I'm sure many of you will offer some other options that we could have used, but we went pretty extensive here. A good breakdown, Miami, Florida State. Now I will leave it up to you, Canes Nation and Knoll Nation, to battle it out from here. Down in the comment section below, please like and subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football.